Have you been designing an object model taking into account what if there's more than one version? What if I have children records under one version and different children under another? How do I handle that? How do I design for that? In this session, Steve's Data Modeling, Mastering Version Control Strategies, we were going to talk about two possible approaches that you can take to handling record versioning. We're going to be looking at option one, peer records. What this means is when you have multiple versions of the same record, you're going to be creating equals. You're going to have a top level object and you're just going to be creating a separate record for each peer. So this is the simplest object model, and it actually is how Salesforce has implemented quotes under opportunities. You can have multiple quotes under an opportunity, and then one of them becomes indicated as the primary quote, but they're each separate quotes. So simple model, you'll see quote under opportunity, it's master detailed, it has its children quote line items, and it's very straightforward. The advantage is it's a simple model to implement. Disadvantage, all the peers show up on the list views, the related lists, and the reporting. So when I'm an opportunity, I will see all my quotes, even previous versions. Number two, each record is separate. They're not clearly linked together. So all my quotes fly together, and I may say one of them is the primary. I can't clearly see the sequence of events or have an audit trail of actions of knowing what's happening between each of those. There could be more than one quote unless I enforce it properly. There could be more than one primary. I have to enforce that. Could even be more than one in progress draft. So in order to do this, you're going to have your object. It could be your quote, your own version of the quote object with its own children. And you would have a button that could say, make it the primary, change its status, and maybe it could remove any other primary, any quotes that are indicated as primary. So this option is using peer records. And I'm going to show that to you here under Salesforce. I can go quote, and here is a quote, and under the field, it is a child of opportunity. There we go. So it is a master detail to the opportunity, and then it'll have its own status. So if we take a look at the out-of-the-box status, draft, in review, approved, rejected, presented, denied. So I could have multiple quotes, each with their own statuses, and then I might indicate which one is primary. If I go back to Object Manager and go to quote, I can see the quote items. They're children of a single quote. So we can separate the children between quotes. And you'll see that because these are all under the primary master detail to the quote. And the last thing, if we go to Object Manager, go to Opportunity, and we come down to here and we look at fields, we can see that there is the synced quote. So this actually has a lookup down to its children to show it which one is the synced quote. So this is the peer level approach to versioning, which is allowing you to have many quotes under an opportunity, and you may choose one of them to become the primary, but you're still there. They'll all show up under the list view. They're all a bunch of equals, and you have to indicate which one might be the primary. Now we're going to talk about the second approach, child versions. What we're having is we're actually going to create two levels of objects to handle this. Instead of having a collection of peers, we're going to create two levels. You're going to have a top level parent object and a child object for the versions. And if you look on the sample object model that I've created, we're going to have, I just indicated a configuration and configuration versions. And then you can have any number of configuration children down below. And so the way this will work is there is one top level object that represents the configuration. And you can give it a name and all your attributes. You can actually have things linked to it. Are things that would link to the configuration irrespective, regardless of which version you're interested in. Then you have the child version, and it has the children. You also add an integer version on it, which auto increments version 1, 2, 3. You can then have a status. I suggest, and I've been highly successful with the following statuses. You have archives for past versions, 1 active or 0 if you haven't gone there yet, and 0 or 1 pending. So the workflow would be I first create a pending. It's the only one. Can't be used, but I can edit it. And then I activate it. Once it becomes active and it gets locked. Now, other processes can utilize that record, that active version. In the meantime, a user can create a draft version, which creates a deep clone of the active. You allow one and only one draft version, and then you allow the edit on the draft version while the active is being used. So the active version is locked. It can be used in production. Activity can be linked to it. And then when the draft reaches an appropriate state and you want to activate it, you get an activate button, which then makes the draft active and makes the previous active, if any, archive. So this way you get a really good clean versioning and change log. You can ensure that you need to ensure that only one active at a time, and your archive records can be unaltered historical records. So you have a great historical document of what was happening when, that this was activated on this date and deactivated on this date. And if you have child linking to below the version, you can actually see exactly what it looked like a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, instead of having the potential to have that record having been changed in the meantime. So to enforce this, you'll have an activate button, which makes the current draft active. It takes the current active, makes it archive, and then you have a new version which does the deep clone, and then you're going to have security to prevent the edits of the active or the archive. And I'm going to show you how this is actually very similarly implemented by Salesforce. So this may seem like a little overkill, but if you have something important like flows, and you need to make sure that you know which flow is active, the flow that's active is running, and I know what flow ran, and then no one can alter the flow while it's running, then you need this mechanism. And so here is a flow, account 1, and I can click on it, and there's just a simple flow, and I'm going to go back to the flow builder, but I want to show you that if I go to the right and say see details and versions, this is going to show me behind the scenes that I have a top level flow object and I have a child flow version. And you'll see I get to see an auto incrementing version 1, version 2. I get to see any detail when it was created, when it was activated. But I can only have one active flow at a time. And I get a detailed historical record of what ran in the past. So flows are a really good indication of this model in effect, and you can build your own implementations using this approach. So I hope this was helpful. This is things that I consider, options I consider when I'm trying to solve data modeling challenges. I also look into Salesforce and see what are common approaches they've taken and decide which one is most appropriate. So I hope this Steve Data Modeling was helpful. This is I'm SteveTechArc, and I'm sharing this on my channel. Wanted to help my architecture insights. So keep following and subscribe. I hope to keep offering more content for you.